Series 8 tier list. Yes, today we're going to be ranking every single brand new Pokemon that's legal for the Series 8 rules that TPCI just dropped today. I figured I would make a little video like this because I've been doing a little bit more, top 25, top 30 lists lately, and you guys have been really liking that stuff. And so since today's the day that TPCI decided to drop the rules for this brand new Series 8 restricted format tier list, I wanted to break down every single one of these brand new Ubers for you guys that have never really played in Uber format. And just to clarify, the Series 8 rule set, for people that are wondering, there'll be a link in the description of this video if you guys want to check it out a little bit more in depth, is basically the same VGC 2021 Series 7 rule set we've been using this whole time. You can still use Ice Horse, you can still use Regielekis, all the different Gmaxes and things like that. But in addition to that, you're allowed to use one Uber Pokemon. You see, we have some stuff on the tier list already. We have things like Mewtwo, Lugia, you can use different forms of Kyurem, you can use the Calyrex forms and a bunch of different cool stuff like that. So every single team is going to be able to use at least one of these Pokemon. And so what I wanted to do today is go down the full list of all the Pokemon that you're actually going to be able to use, rank them from S tier all the way down to D tier, and then talk about their EVs, their move sets, their different playstyles, their item choices, maybe a little bit of a history on their competitive use over the years. Because a lot of you guys have been liking those types of videos, and I feel that for a lot of you guys, this is your, like I said, very first time going into a restricted format. So there's a lot of things you're going to need to know. So if you guys are excited for this video, please think about leaving a comment, letting me know. Think about subscribing to the channel. That would really help me out. If you're looking to get more into VGC, I would say this is definitely a good place to be. We upload daily content here, and if you want to see more content like this, definitely feel free to reach out. Also, think about answering the question of the day and letting me know what Pokemon you want to see or use from this format. There's a lot of really cool restricteds, and I will say that eventually this format is going to get a little stale, but for the time being, we have about 30 Pokemon that, haven't seen, competitive play in at least a year. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's hop right into it. Here we go. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be listing every single one of these Uber Pokemon, 5 Pokemon in each of the tiers for S, A, B, C, and D. And I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer here. This is just my general list. Don't take this list as the de facto list. If I put something in the D tier that you really like, these are Uber Pokemon. These Pokemon can all definitely win any game all by themselves. And don't think that just because I'm harsh on a Pokemon that it's unusable. Or don't think also that if I say something's good that you have to use it. All these Pokemon have the potential to win pretty much every single game, and that's one thing that's really cool about these restricted formats, is there is a ton more power that's injected into the game. And I will say, a little bit different from previous restrictive formats. And a restricted format, for those guys who don't know, I'm going to use that term a lot, means basically you're allowed to use these restricted Uber Pokemon. Right? And so normally in past restricted Uber formats, you were able to use 2 of them per team. And so a lot of these Pokemon had little cores that they went with. There was the Xerneas Groudon core or the Rayquaza Kyogre core. Those are definitely really popular things, and they definitely were Pokemon that had a lot of synergy with partners. And so removing that actually makes some of these Pokemon a little bit stronger and makes some of them a little bit weaker. And so we're going to be talking about that as we get into the list. But I think starting things off, I think I'm going to just take my S pick, and I think it's going to be... I think Kyogre is still S. I really do think Kyogre is still the best Pokemon. I will say, I'm going to try my best to have every one of these Pokemon ranked in their own tiers, but basically, we are going to be separating them by tiers for a reason. So, yeah, I would say Kyogre is still probably the best Pokemon in the game. It just does so much. So we're going to see Kyogre here. And so Kyogre is really good. We're going to take a look at its base stats first. But this thing has amazing base stats, first of all. It has a 150 base special attack. And a lot of you guys that are thinking, this thing is pretty underwhelming. Let's just straight up compare it to another Pokemon on the list, like the Calyrex Shadow thing, which is a lot of people think is going to be really popular. So let's compare them, right? 165 is higher than Kyogre, 150 is higher than Kyogre, 100 is as same as Kyogre. If you look at this thing just has more stats. It should just be way better, right? Well, the thing is, while this Pokemon can be good and while other Pokemon can be good, Kyogre brings a lot of team synergy and a lot of control to the table. I still think Kyogre is going to be so impressive because it gets the Drizzle ability. So on switching, this Pokemon activates Rain Dance, which means it's going to be able to set its own weather, and it's going to be able to empower Pokemon that use the moves like Hurricane, use the move Thunder, and more importantly, Kyogre, for example, likes to use the move Water Spout. So it's similar to moves like Eruption and Dragon's Maw. It's a 150 base power move that does less power as the user's HP decreases. So it gets things like Water Spout, it gets like Origin Pulse, which is a 110 base power move, which historically is similar to Water Spout, but it has that 85% accuracy, which you can see right there. So it does, people tend to call it the Origin Miss, for example, similar to like Focus Blast and stuff like that. So these two moves, for example, are very good. You can also think about going like Ice Beam or like Icy Wind or Blizzard, and you also get access to things like Thunder. And so I personally do think that like choice spec sets are gonna be really popular, especially with Pokemon like Tornadus. We're actually gonna be streaming with a team that looks like this a little bit later today. Like historically, like Torn Ogre is one of like the best cores in like restrictive formats, because Tornadus has the ability to set like Tailwinds for the Kyogre, ability to set Rain Dance for the Kyogre, and now that like speed control is immediate in Sword and Shield upon them receiving it, they don't have to wait a turn for the speed control to like kick in. Like this just makes Torn Ogre like even better. I think Kyogre is going to be an amazing pick. If we don't see a lot of choice spec sets, we're probably going to see a lot of like Mystic Water sets, just because Kyogres do tend to stick more to the water, aspect of things. But I do think we're going to see like definitely like full investment in special attack for sure to maximize on that big AoE potential. That's what Kyogre really does bring to the table. And then we're probably still going to see relatively full speed Ogres, just because there is going to be like a lot of speed tying going on. Historically in the past, Scarf Ogre was very good. Choice Scarf Ogre was really good back in, Sun Series of VGC 2019. And it's been just a great Pokemon for years. You know, people like to use like Scarf Ogre on teams, and then they bring in, like an Airlock user. They used to use Rayquaza, but like a Cloud9 user would also be like really good here. So there's a lot of Pokemon that get like Cloud9, for example. There's Altaria, Drampa, Golduck, Licky. Those all get Cloud9. Basically, you switch this thing in, remove any opponent's sun, weather, anything, and then Scarf Kyogre just literally melts all their Pokemon. So I do think Kyogre still brings a lot to the table. I think one thing about these restricted formats is they're very good. They're so important on AoE moves. So you can see Kyogre from the start already has multiple AoE moves in Origin Pulse, Water Spout. You have the ability to go for Blizzards if you want. The Calyrex Pokemon that I talked about, that has an AoE move. The Calyrex Ice Horse has an AoE move. Groudon has an AoE move. Xerneas has an AoE move. You're going to see these AoE moves, or moves that hit multiple targets, are going to be the things that put certain Pokemon a little bit higher on the list. Using one Pokemon to deal with two other Pokemon on your opponent's side of the field, that's how you play Uber formats for the most part. Basically, what you want to be doing when you're playing these restricted formats is have your big Uber, and this is historically. Feel free to, expand upon this and put your own spin on it. But basically, you play the protect the Uber comp. So basically what people would do back in the day, where they go Torn Ogre, Tornadus would be the support Pokemon for your Ogre. Or maybe you have like a fake out user, historically like Mega Kangaskhan. Historically used to be like really good, like a fake out user. Or you could have like a follow me user, like an Amoonguss, for example, is another like really good Pokemon to pair with Kyogre, because it would give you a little bit of a Trick Room variant if you wanted it. But like follow me users and things like that, Lightning Rod users, and you basically just protect your Uber and have the whole rest of your team dedicated to like babysitting your Uber and making sure your Uber can just launch those AoE attacks at your opponent. And that's kind of how you play these formats. So I do think Kyogre's going to continue to do those things. And, feel free to completely correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. If you think there's certain Pokemon that just super outclass Kyogre, definitely feel free to let me know. This is just my list, and obviously the format hasn't even really started yet, so how much could I really know? But let's get into the second Pokemon. Let's put Kyogre. Oh, we put it on the list already. Cool. Let's get into the second Pokemon. I think the second Pokemon's actually going to be this Calyrex Shadow. And I'm not gonna lie, I have not played a ton with this thing. You saw I just talked about it up here. Let's go. Calyrex Shadow. So the way you get this is by having Spectriker and Calyrex, and it's like a fusion of them. It actually has a really cool, unique ability. Fairly unique. It's called As One. So it's actually two abilities fused together. So it's Unnerve and Xerneas. So it basically says no berries are going to be active on your opponent's side of the field. So that's really, really good. That means like you're not going to be seeing as many citrus berries or wiki berries or any sort of those pinch berries, but also no damage reduction berries, which is actually pretty important for an Uber format in my opinion, because they're actually really good. We're already seeing a lot of damage reduction berries in this format. So things like Incineroar Fiend, it's gonna like low-key nerf those Pokemon because they're reliant on those pinch berries to actually function. Things like Togekiss, Comfey reliant on like Babiri berries, or things like all those dark reduced berries on like Trick Room setters. Those aren't going to be like able to be used, so that makes Calyrex already really, really good. And also gets Xerneas, which says when it does knock out a Pokemon, it gets a special attack boost to its already massive special attack stat. And so again, I actually think this Pokemon is actually going to be a very, very popular like Scarf user. And so in formats where people want to play aggressive with their Ubers, similar to the Ogre, we're going to see a lot of like speed. And I will say that all these EV spreads that I'm using are going to be generic placeholders. Do not take these EV spreads and say like, this is the EV spread that's +1 said, so it's perfect. You really should very rarely be using 252 spreads. Like on the Ogre set that we're going to be using today, it's not even one of these. I think I'm using full special attack, but I think I have like just enough speed to outspeed Dragapult at like in a Tailwind or something like that, which would end up being like, let's see if I even can. Because I think Dragapult's still going to be fairly popular. I just want to show you guys how like building EV spreads and stuff like that. It's important. So Dragapult's 213. So we basically only need to get 107. So I think I have like not even that much. It's like a lot of bulk actually. Actually, I don't need any. Yeah. So like, you see what I mean? So basically a Tailwind would double that 110 and make me outspeed the Pult. Because that's all I really want to outspeed. And I could put more speed in there, but basically like, you put the rest of the points, like, I think I have, like, 180 in here. And then I think I have some in defense because I still think Urshifu's going to be popular. So it's like, for what my team's trying to do later today, like, that would be a better EV spread than just a 2v2 squad. So just throwing that out there. Be sure to make your own EV spreads. And, be sure, the first thing you do when you want to make EV spreads is make sure you're outspeeding the things you want to outspeed. And from there, you max out one stat, you max out whatever offense or defense or HP stat, and then you can throw the rest of the points in other places to cover up for holes. So, again, that's the general EV idea. But it's also generally a good idea to throw if you're a new player looking to just throw points into stuff, throw your points into your 2 highest stats, and you'll probably be in a good spot. But like I was talking about, I've already heard talk on Twitter about, like, Scarf, Calyrex Shadow being really, really good. So, if you're expecting to see a lot of this Pokemon in a mirror match, you versus them, I do think that like Calyrex Shadow, rocking that full speed, you always have to go first. And also note that like a full speed version of this will outspeed other historic Pokemon on this list, like Zacian. We outspeed the Dragapults if we're full speed and stuff like that. That's going to be really, really important. So this thing kind of has to go full speed in my opinion, or at least have enough speed to outspeed like Zacian, and then from there you might as well put the rest of the speed. You rest your points in speed so that you still speed tie other Calyrexes. It gets a really, really unique attack called Astral Barrage. So it's a 120 base power special attack that hits both targets and it can't miss. So it's similar to that Origin Pulse, but then it can't miss. So this is going to like dominate the meta. People are talking about using this thing with a few different items. I think that, again, Choice Scarfs are going to be probably the most popular item for the start of the format until people start teching in a lot of like normal types to wall this thing out and force them to use other attacks. But I personally do think that like Life Orb's going to be okay on this thing, and I also think that like the Shadow Tag is going to be pretty good. Whatever that is, whatever the ghost boosting move is. I thought it was called the Shadow Tag's the Pokemon ability. Whatever that Spell Tag. There we go, Spell Tag. Wow. Also, guys, it's 3:30 in the morning when I'm recording this. It's 3:30 in the morning, and I'm making you guys a video. If that doesn't make you guys like or comment, like, I don't know what will, because I should be sleeping. But yeah, Spell Tag, similar to the Kyogre. Once people really understand these Pokemon are supposed to be played, and they understand that they're Ubers that use these AoE attacks and just launch massive AoE moves on the opponents, you're just going to want to boost those moves. And the reason why you want to use things like Spell Tags and Mystic Water is those still work when you're Dynamaxed. Unlike, Choice Scarfs and Choice Specs. So I think that those are going to be great options. I also think Sash is generally, like, an okay item on this thing, but only in, like, niche matchups. And so I do think this Pokemon's going to be very good. I have not tested it yet, and I also think that, like, just regular Spectriker is still going to be very, very good. This Pokemon gets so many cool moves. I guess I should fill out its moves. You know, it still gets like the Will-O-Wisps. It should still get the Snarls, and it probably gets like a bunch of other cool stuff. It's like the Dark Pulse. Is it a Mono Ghost? It's a Psychic Ghost, so just it gets Expanding Force too. That's a nuts moveset. Yeah, I think this Pokemon's gonna be super sick. Expect this thing paired with like NDD female, I guess, to set the terrains. Does it get Trick Room? Oh man, does it get Imprison? I see, like I'm learning new stuff too. It does. So you can like Imprison, Trick Room. So like when I play with this Pokemon, that's probably gonna be the moveset that I choose to play with, and I'll probably play it with that spell tag. And I think that's like really, really, really good. I might also think about putting like goggles on it so it's not affected by you know, Venusaurs going for sleep powders or spores or anything like that. So I think that's a really cool way to play this Pokemon. Very, very good Imprison Trick Room Mon. A lot of the Pokemon on this list, there's not that many that get Trick Room, and there's also not that many that get like Imprison Trick Room. So that's actually really, really cool. So the next one on the list is going to be actually another Trick Room user. You're going to start to see a little bit of a pattern here. And, you know, this may be a little bit premature putting this Pokemon this high, but I think this Pokemon historically has the results to go this high. And that's going to be Dusk Mane. And I do think that Dusk Mane does have a couple problems. Historically, another one being like, you know, we can't use those damage reduction berries anymore because the Calyrex is going to be so popular. And Calyrex is so popular that it's going to just have a hard time. Dusk Mane's going to have a hard time. It's a Psychic Steel, so it does take super effective effect damage from Calyrex's Ghost typing, but it has a really, really good ability, right? It has a really, really good ability called Prism Armor. So this Pokemon receives 3/4 damage from super effective attacks. So like super effective attacks basically, you know, don't do anything. Don't use them. They're not worth it. And you're also, when you go for those special attacks, you're probably going to be proccing a weakness policy. This thing has a lot of weaknesses. It's weak to, you know, it's weak to Ghost. It's weak to Dark. It's weak to Fire. It's weak to Ground. And those are all really popular types in this format. So you're never going to be able to one-shot the Dusk Mane. I would say it's probably better to probably not try. And, yeah, like, and it's just going to be able to get a free policy proc on you, so watch out for that. It also gets really cool moves like Trick Room. I do think what I was talking about, like the Calyrex using the Unnerve to turn off like berries, this thing historically has been reliant on like wiki berries, and so you're going to force it to use a lot more policies, and I would just say like watch out for that policy. This is definitely a Pokemon you want to hit with status effects, sleeps, burns, things like that. I will say it gets a really cool move called Photon Geyser. And so this thing says it's physical if your attack's higher, but special if your special attack's higher. So it's actually really, really cool. Not a lot of like moves really work that way. And so like even if you had like a ton of attack investment, you can see our EV spreads over here. It's gonna want to lean physical, but if you have like special attack investment, you see it'll lean more towards special. Or let's say you have a lot of attack investment, right? But then you get like intimidated. You know, then it'll turn into like a special attack, and it's actually really, really cool. So it's always going to hit as hard as it can possibly hit. It also gets Sunsteel Strike, because remember, this is like the Solgaleo variant of Necrozma. So Sunsteel Strike's another really, really good move. 100 base power and ignores abilities. So this will hit things like Shedinja, regardless of the fact they have Wonder Guard. This will hit a lot of those Pokemon that don't really want to take that, that aren't really used to taking that damage. So it works similar to like Mold Breaker, but it's even better than Mold Breaker because like it's just better than Mold Breaker. It's the best way to explain it. And like I said, it gets Trick Room, it gets Geyser, it gets Sunsteel Strike. This thing gets a lot of really cool moves. Also still gets like Expanding Force. It gets fire attacks and like Heat Wave. I personally like rocking this thing with a little bit of Sustain off like a Moonlight or like a Morning Sun or something like that. But yeah, historically Dusk Mane's been really, really good because this is the Pokemon you bring when you're like, okay, cool, I need to set Trick Room. And this thing is like an unKOable Trick Room Mon. It's just going to say, I'm going to get Trick Room up every single time. And then like, you can also like self-policy proc with this guy. And then like, he becomes an amazing Dynamax Mon that starts one-shotting everything. You're going to see the rest of the Pokemon on this list, other than like this Calyrex form, which I said is ranked number 2. Dusk Mane pretty much does a great job of walling. And then because like Dusk Mane, I guess like Dusk Mane was the Uber that you would like splash onto your team when you just wanted like a good solid matchup. When you didn't just want to auto lose to aggression, you would put the Dusk Mane Necrozma in your team because it's so bulky. And again, like similar EV spreads here, you want to max out anything under 100 on the HP stat first. And then this is a decent speed stat, but you can totally go into Trick Room with that. These are great defensive numbers. 127, 109. That's like actually really, really good. So if you pair this with like an Intimidate user or a Screen user, you're never going to go down. And I think the addition of a lot of like the Pollen Puff, Heal Pulse, like Life Dew things in this gen, they're going to definitely complement the Dusk Mane playstyle. So you can expect a lot of like the players, a lot of your favorite content creators, when they actually start using their serious teams for events, you can expect them to actually see a lot of Dusk Mane, because it basically says like, hey, you're going to have to outplay me if you actually want to win. And that's a Pokemon that like really rewards patient play. And Dusk Mane also just like looks super cool. So I think it's definitely still in the S tier. I'm going to put it in the S tier at the 3rd spot, but you know, feel free to disagree with me. Up next, another Pokemon that I don't have a ton of you know, experience with yet, and I'm just going to put this Ice Horse up here. The other Calyrex form that I think is still really good, but like I said, definitely take my interpretations of this thing with like a grain of salt. So again, this thing's similar to the other Calyrex, has as one. It has Unnerve and Chilling Neigh. Chilling Neigh boosts its attack stat, which is through the roof. It's the exact same as this other Ice Horse. You know, instead of the 150 speed special attack, it's 150 defense and attack. And I will say that like Grass Trayer, the Ice Horse that this thing is riding, is still going to be like super, super good. And that's not an Uber. You can just use that one. So basically the way I think this thing's going to be played, man, this thing, first of all, gets the Glacial Lance, which is the exact same thing. It's a 130 base power. Was this one 120? Or is it 130 as well? Astral Marshal is 120. This one's 130. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, it gets Glacial Lance, but it gets Trick Room, right? That's the thing. Imagine if every single time you fought a Glass Trayer, it could set its own Trick Room. And so like those two things combo together makes this thing like absolutely freaking nuts. I think that people are going to be either playing this with a weakness policy, right? But I also think this could be played definitely with a Lumberry. And the only reason I wouldn't see we would use as much Lumberry is because like Lumberries are turned off by as one. But like Assault Vest would be good if you're not running Trick Room. We're probably still going to see a lot of Life Orb sets as well. Life Orb is probably a great item. So is a Never Melt Ice on this thing, just because it has AoE attacks, similar as we talked about earlier. What other moves does this thing get? It's Aromatherapy, blew him out. Like, it's Close Combat. It gets all the same things that, like, Ice Horse basically gets. High Horsepower. I'm sure it gets Steel attacks as well. It gets Leech Seed. Like, that's so nuts. Like, hold on. Let's, like, find one more, like, nuts move that this thing gets. Megahorn's cool. And it's an Ice Psychic. So, like, maybe, like, a Zen Headbutt or, like, a Taunt. It also gets like Trick. I think it's so many cool moves. Okay. There's your set, you know? Like, take it or leave it, you know, that's the play right there. That is just completely nuts. Like, a Pokemon actually having access to all those moves is gonna just break the game, I think. And that's why it's in the S tier. It's pretty good. I do think that, again, you want to max that HP first on this guy most of the time. And I actually don't even think you need that much attack, because you're gonna be relying on like Chilling Neigh, or maybe you're like you could totally just do this. Like, you could totally do that. Remember, when you're playing for Trick Room, you want to take your points out of speed. And then, like, you know, there you go. I mean, that's going to be what most people gravitate towards when playing this Pokemon for the first time. And that's probably what I'm going to test first, too. But I know I don't need this many points in attack, because I'm going to be relying on, like, items, Helping Hands, and then, like, my As-1 ability to get more boost. But, like, this is going to make my Glacial Lance hit like a truck. And that's pretty busted. I also realized I forgot to do an EV spread for this guy. General EV spreads from Necrozma. I would say that Urshifu is still going to be really popular. So if you're testing with this guy, I would still test like that. You know, if you're playing for Trick Room, I would still test like that. But I know you don't need that much defense. I would say watch out for Yveltal. So if you can squeeze out like, you know, like 84 in that area and go like this, that's probably going to be okay. You don't really need a ton of attack investment. There might be some situations where you want to calc to see, like, you know, this Pokemon, for example, is there a situation where you can, like, 2-hit KO an Ice Horse with, like, a Sunsteel Strike at +2? And, you know, you might need something, you know, like 56 points in attack to do that with, like, maybe an Adamant Nature or, like, a Brave Nature. So you might have to run some calcs, but I do think, like, going bulky on Dusk Mane is probably the way to go. Sorry, I'll try my best. You know, I'm still used to, like, doing these tier lists, so hopefully you guys are liking this so far. Let me know, actually, if you guys have made it this far and you're still excited about this format. definitely leave a comment letting me know, just like I always ask, leave a comment saying I made it this far. It would really help me out to see who actually watches this far into the video. And the last Pokemon in the S tier. The last Pokemon in the S tier is going to be a Pokemon you guys probably thought that I would have mentioned already, and that's going to be Zacian-Crowned. And I do think that this Pokemon is going to fall off. I do plan on using a ton of Zacian. I think it's actually just a super, super amazing Pokemon. But it does have a couple things holding it back compared to the other Pokemon, in that it's relatively one-dimensional. It has to hold an item, which is the Rusted Sword. So basically what this thing does is it turns Zacian from this Zacian, which has way less stats, into the Zacian-Crowned, which has a lot more stats. You can see it has 170 base attack. It's pretty big, even bigger than the Ice Horse. And then it gains the ability Intrepid Sword, which says every single time you send it out, it gets a +1 attack boost. So it's a 170 Pokemon with an attack boost, which means even if you intimidate it, it goes back down to just having 170. Like, most people are using like this EV spread right now, and I don't actually think you need that many. I actually think that, first of all, you still get outsped no matter what you do by this Calyrex Pokemon, right? You still get outsped by that thing regardless, because it's 150 and we're rocking the 148, but you can outspeed Dragapults by going like 212. You outspeed Dragapult right there, and then you're for the luxury of putting this. This is the EV spread that I used when I used it in the, what is it, that one international challenge a while ago. And I think that EV spread actually gives it just a little bit more bulk and is pretty decent. But yeah, Zacian's just great, but it's a little bit one-dimensional in that, like, most people like to run it with Play Rough. It has such good typing. Fairy Steel is some of the best typing in the game historically, like Mawile rocking the Fairy Steel type. It's been so good. It gets Behemoth Blade, which is really, really good. It's a 100 base power move that cannot miss and doubles the damage of this move if they're Dynamax. So this is one of the few Pokemon that is a non-Dynamax Pokemon that can just dumpster other Dynamaxes. So basically what this is doing is ignoring the double HP boost they get. That's basically the way to kind of look at this. If you're ever thinking about trying to like calc the damage, just think about how much damage would this do to like a regular version of that Pokemon. Like, they don't even take the Dynamax into it because it just doubles the damage just like they double their health. So Behemoth Blade's right there. I personally think that because this thing is so frail, so one-dimensional, you need Protect. And I'm going to be running it with Substitute. I do think Substitute's really good because, again, the way to beat Zacian is to get multiple Intimidates up onto it. And, you know, on those turns where they're switching Intimidators, they're not really attacking. They're trying to switch in Incineroars to, you know, block the Behemoth Blades or take neutral player off damage. And if you can get those subs up early, it's going to make them overcommit to dealing with Zacian. You can use Protects to bait that from there. And since Zacian's speed's relatively high, we are going to be outspeeding almost everything other than like Calyrex or Scarf users. So I think that like Sub's really good, but he actually gets a lot of like really, really other good stuff. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, but it gets Crunch, it gets Close Combat, it gets Zen Headbutt. I think that most players are going to gravitate towards a Wild Charge, just because there's so many things. Like I already said, Ogre's really, really good. We're going to see a lot of flying types as the list like winds out. So I think most people are going to be aggressive like that, but I think like being a little bit more reserved and using Substitute there is actually going to be a really, really cool tech choice. You know, that I have more to say about this Pokemon because I have a really cool team featuring coming up soon. But yeah, the thing about Zacian that kind of holds it back from being like the SS plus, like the best in the game, is that it can't Dynamax, right? And so it's kind of stuck in like, if you're falling behind, Zacian will not like bring you back in the game. The best thing that you can actually do is just win and win early with this Pokemon. Hit hard, hit fast, and it's reliant on its team to have a ton of like redirection using like Togekiss and like Inity. I think is going to be a great Pokemon for this thing to make it so you can't get fake outed. And it provides that Follow Me with maybe a little bit health restoration or like Helping Hand. So I think Zacian's really, really good, but you know, we're going to see a lot of Pokemon. We're going to see, like, Landorus is going to get huge usage this format using those big Earthquakes. Like, Scarf Earthquake is going to definitely be a problem for Zacian. Tons of Intimidates. So you're going to need to, like, really team build to use a formatted Zacian team. And Zacian has a decent amount of weaknesses, too, that are actually kind of popular. Like, Ground and Fire are going to be two of the most popular types to splash because like ground types are going to be good versus all these steel types, and fire types are already everywhere because of Calyrex and the Ice Horse. So like Zacian has an uphill battle because like if anything is rocking like a Scarf Heat Wave, you pretty much just lose. And you're going to have to use Wide Guard users. You're going to have to play really smart to play with Zacian if you want to do well with it. But it is a Pokemon that can definitely like carry games, and it makes it so like when you have the Zacian and you have your other Pokemon able to Dynamax, you basically have 2 Dynamax Mons, because Zacian, using that Behemoth Blade, basically hits like a Dynamax Mon because of all the attack boost that it gets through the Intrepid Sword and the fact that Behemoth Blade ignores you know, the health boost from the max moves. So I think Zacian's pretty good, and that's the S tier. That is the S tier. Man, I can't believe how long have I been recording this? It's already been like a half an hour. Oh, I'm so tired. But you know what? I gotta keep going. I gotta keep going. We could bust out the rest of this list. We could totally do it. So let me just pull up all the stuff that I have here. Alright, so the next Pokemon on the list is historically the most Uber Pokemon, I think. I think it's the one that most people are excited to use the most. And that is gonna be... Let's get rid of this Kyogre. It's gonna be Xerneas. So Xerneas is like super nuts in every format it's ever been in. There we go, Xerneas it up, and bring out the Xerneas over here. So Xerneas, bam. So Xerneas rocks, it first of all gets a super good ability called Fairy Aura. It says when this Pokemon is active, Fairy moves used by any Pokemon, yours, your opponents, your teammates, anything, gets a 1.3 power boost, gives no life orb boost. That's really busted. Historically, this thing uses Power Herbs, which is an item that makes Xerneas the best Pokemon in the game. It says the holders... What is it? The holders moves complete in 1 turn. So their charge moves, things like Solar Beam, Fly, and historically Geomancy only take 1 turn to power up. And so what Geomancy does, it's the best move in the game, says it charges, which you can ignore by using a Power Herb, and then it raises the target's special attack, special defense, and speed by 2. It sharply raises them, it doubles them, and that's completely busted. So you know I was talking earlier about like what you want to do with your Ubers, especially ones that have AoE moves like Xerneas does, is you want to protect the Ubers. Like Xerneas is the ultimate, like I want to sit back, pop my Geomancies, use my Follow Me's, my Tailwinds, and my Fake Out teammates, and make it so you never can really hit the Xerneas, and the Xerneas is just going to tear your whole team apart, using things like, you know, Dazzling Gleam. For example, people like to still rock the big Moonblast, and the cool thing about Xerneas is like, people are like, well, that's a cool moveset, but what do you do to get Steel types? I'm like, I'm not even kidding. If you have like heavy special attack investment and get a Power Herb boost, and then because of the stab and the Fairy Aura, like you will like 2-shot Ferrothorn with this Moonblast. Like fire types, you will 1-shot them with the freaking Moonblast. Like everything pretty much gets melted by Dazzling Gleam unless it's already Dynamaxed. And even the things that resist it, like you can go up against this Necrozma and you're like, cool, I'm gonna pop my Geomancy, and they're gonna Trick Room. And then they still might not beat you because like Xerneas has like really good bulk. You don't need to go full HP, but I would recommend, so like basically what most people are going to do is just this. They're going to be like, I would like to get my Geomancy up as fast as possible, and that's the set that they're going to do. They're going to play their Xerneases, you know, like that. But I would recommend that you don't, because I don't think that it's like an optimal set. I would say, so like this thing's, not that way. Here we go. This thing's speed was 222, so you want to outspeed that, so you want to be like, you're already fast enough with like no investment to outspeed that at +2. So like, I'll still put the last 4 there, so you're fighting other Xerneases that, you're still outspeeding other Xerneases that have that same bulk. And then I would recommend an EV spread like this. I'd recommend an EV spread. You don't need full HP, so let's do like 180, right? Or 76. No, it was 80, right? Yeah, so 180 there. And then like you're afforded 72 more points. You can put that in special attack. I don't want to put that there. Or we can put like 68 and 4. So we can go like 4. Yeah. So like I would probably think that like a set like this would actually be a lot more realistic of what we're going to see in the meta. Just because like the way to beat Xerneas is, you don't really rely on like the poison attacks as much. You rely mostly on steel attacks. And so with this EV spread, your Xerneas just laughs, eats their steel attack in the face, and then pops the Geo, and the Geo is going to give it special D stat like through the roof. So like you have massive defense, massive special D, a good HP stat, and then like you gave yourself the steroid from the the Fairy Aura and the Geomancy boost, to where like your special attack is just through the roof already. So yeah, I do think that like Xerneas is going to be absolutely bust, and this is going to be an EV spread that I'm probably going to use when I play with it. Like, historically, Xerneas it's never won the World Championships, but this is the Pokemon that pretty much dominates how people play VGC, just because it's so oppressive. If you get a turn 1 Geomancy off, there's basically, like, no way to like come back in that game if your opponent gets one off, or if you get one off. Historically, we've seen a lot of people use Haze. Maybe we'll start seeing a lot more Haze in this format, just because Haze plays around redirection. You know, Tapu feeding with Haze is one way to definitely play around Xerneas. You know, we've historically seen like Tapu Lele's with Magic Room to turn off the Xerneas' power herb, so they have to hard cast the Geomancy. That was another really cool team back in the day. But yeah, this is going to be super oppressive, and it pretty much has everything it needs to win. And the more you protect it, the better it's going to be. So let's see, what is next? What is next on the list? The next Pokemon on the list is going to be another Pokemon that was really, really popular in 2019. One that actually went really well with Xerneas. And that's going to, I think, be Lunala. And I will say Lunala might end up actually being a little bit worse in the overall scheme of things. But I do think it actually has a lot going for it. So Lunala's, they get Shadow Shield, which is similar to Dragonite's multi-scale. It says if the Pokemon is at full HP, damages taken from attacks is halved. It's really, really good, but it's not like affected by like Mold Break. You have to use the moves like Lunala's Moongeist Beam. So it ignores the abilities of other Pokemon. It's like really, really good, and it's able, like, the only thing is like check Lunalas are like other Lunalas. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like a heavy special defense invested Lunala was able just to eat the Calyrex Astral Barrage, or you can just pop a Wide Guard, and then from there, like Lunala, what it actually gets, I want to see if it actually still gets it. So it doesn't still get Tailwind, but it does still get Trick Room, and that's one thing that Lunala brings to the table. So it gets like Moongeist Beam, Trick Room, it gets Expanding Force, so it has 2 big stab moves, and then the last move can literally just be like a Protect, or like a Focus Blast. There's so many different things this thing gets. It gets recovery moves, gets Calm Minds. I think it actually gets like Meteor Beam too. So like you could rock like a power herb set yourself, and like that's super like saucy with the Meteor Beam. I've used Meteor Beam Necrozma before, but I do think Protect's probably gonna be a little bit better. And historically, the item that people use in this thing, it just completely varies. Weakness Policy is a really popular one, just because again, similar to like Dragonite, you have that Shadow Shield, making it so like damage you take is half. So like Dark Attacks and Ghost Attacks are 4 times super effective, but they're reduced by half. And then like you're able to like self policy proc very easy with this guy with like Shadow Sneaks and not take a ton of damage, and then like retop it off. It's really, really good. Has a decent like overall like spread here. It's a little bit fast to be used in TR, but like if you're expecting your opponent to be using like Calyrex and other things like that, and you go with like a min speed variant, like it's actually like not too fast to where it's still functioning correctly. And I do think that like most people are gonna go like that if they're playing the Trick Room one. Other than that, 97 base speed, if you actually want to max the speed and not use like Trick Room, is still pretty significant. Like I think let's take a look at another Pokemon, Urshifu. So like Urshifu is still super popular, and this speed ties that. And so I don't actually know how this Pokemon's gonna function in a meta dominated by like Urshifu and Calyrex, but I'm thinking we're gonna see a lot less Urshifu Dark. And I'm thinking that like even though Calyrex is gonna be popular, it's popular using like AoE moves, right? And so I could use a Wide Guard user, like just pop a Steel on your team, gets Wide Guard, and then like Lunala just absolutely dumpsters this thing. So I think Lunala does bring a lot to the table. Feel free to like mess around with his EVs however you wish, but I do think there is a lot going for it. And historically, this Pokemon, you know, in 2019, this thing was everywhere. Like Xerneas Lunala, it was called SpaceX actually, and very, very cool team. And I definitely think there's potential for Lunala to be really, really good. Now, speaking of Pokemon that can be really good, we're going to move on to the next part of this list. Man, I'm already like fading fast. I think I might have to make this a 2-part video. Just because, holy moly, I'm just dying here. Anyways, the next Pokemon is going to be Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh actually brings a lot to the table, and if we actually look at the other Pokemon that are already up here, if we look at like Kyogre is a great matchup versus Ho-Oh, but you can definitely make Ho-Oh able to fight Kyogres. I would say Ho-Oh has a decent matchup versus the Ghost Horse, has a great matchup versus Dusk Mane, great matchup versus the Ice Horse, great matchup versus Zacian, great matchup versus Xerneas, great matchup versus Lunala. This is the Uber, similar to Dusk Mane, that says like you don't really just auto lose when you want to play with it, but it is susceptible to like being ignored. It doesn't really have like tons of great offensive pressure. 130 is a little bit low for an Uber, but where it really succeeds is this huge special D stat. So like historically, people would maximize Ho-Ohs like this. They'd put like HP special D. It gets Recover, which means it doesn't have to use Roost to lose its flying typing. and then they'd basically just like stall people out with like Sacred Fire. So 50% chance for burn on there, 100 base power, 95 accuracy. Some people use like Brave Bird. I think it actually gets like dual wing beat. Yeah, so I'd probably use the dual wing beat because I don't like taking the recoil. But this lets it go for like Airstream, and sometimes people will put like Tailwind on it. Looks like it doesn't get it anymore. What else did it really get that people like to use? I think Ho-Oh is like historically an amazing Pokemon, and it's a lot of fun to use it, but like one Intimidate or like one Reflect or like a Screen or something like that, and you're like super sad with this thing. Let's see, what other moves did I really like to use with Ho-Oh? I've used Substitute. Whirlwind's another really cool one. It still gets Thunder Wave, that's kind of funny. But Fire Spin, I've seen people talk about using that to, you know, trap things. It gets Life Dew, that's actually kind of cool as well. Another thing to really note about Ho-Oh is that, yes, it does have the Regenerator active as an ability because of the, you know, the ability patch. But, like, Pressure is actually a really, really good ability because we're trying to, like, wall our opponents out. Pressure, like, all these really, really cool moves, like Astral Barrage, you only get 8, which means you only get 4, which means if, like, this is my Ho-Oh set, like, you're going to run out. Same thing with the Water Spouts, same things with pretty much everything. You will run out of moves if you're correctly utilizing your Pressure, and it's a Pokemon that I would say can best use this play style. All you really have to do is surround your Ho-Oh with like good Intimidate users, maybe a little bit of screens, maybe a little bit of support, and then Ho-Oh's a Pokemon that can like wall out their Uber, and then from there, like you go right into the long game, and Ho-Oh's able to completely dominate. I think Ho-Oh's really, really cool, and I do think it's a really popular Pokemon, but we'll see if it can still hold up. It's one of those ones that like you would go Ho-Oh Groudon, and then make it so like you have Ho-Oh on the board, and then they go for the big water attack on your Ogre, you switch in your Groudon, make the water attacks weaker, you do some chip damage to the Ogre, the water spouts aren't as strong anymore, and then from there you've like gained enough board momentum. So without like the reliance on like other Ubers, we'll see if Ho-Oh can still stack up, but I think like Ho-Oh Torkoal is going to be a lot of fun to play with still, and I'm definitely excited to do that. So the next Pokemon on this list, a Pokemon that a lot of people are really, really excited to use, and that's going to be Yveltal. Yveltal is going to be the next Pokemon able to be used here, and I think Yveltal just brings, again, so much cool stuff to the table. Let's look at Yveltal. So Yveltal, bam. Yveltal, bam. This Pokemon, similar to Xerneas, gets Dark Aura, so it gets a 1.3 boost to it and its teammates' all dark attacks. It's things similar to Galarian Moltres. A lot of people compare this thing to Moltres. Historically, Yveltal has been more of an anti-meta pick. It gets those big snarls, it gets big stab foul plays, and then people would play it kind of like a big bulky check to a lot of these other Ubers, and you can see it has a great matchup versus Dusk Mane. It could be used to correctly deal with Kyogres, and back in the day, people used to use Knockoff on it. It looks like it doesn't get it anymore, but that would be a great check to Xerneas, because you'd speed tie the Xerneas, and you usually have a lot more speed investment on the Yveltal, so you'd be able to like knock off that Xerneas to get rid of the Power Herb. But it looks like it doesn't get it anymore. It also gets really, really good special attacks, like Oblivion Wing is one of the best attacks in the game. 80 base power, and you restore 75% of the damage you actually deal, you restore that. So like a vested Yveltal is one that I really like using with like Oblivion Wing and things like this. But I think it also still gets like Roost if you didn't want to play with the Assault Vest. So it has the ability to like have Sustain if you want, but like it also gets where is it? It also gets like Hurricane and things like that. So Yveltal brings a lot to the table. I think we're gonna see a lot of people using Yveltal and Moltres together actually, because like remember guys, Moltres gets that Fiery Wrath, right? So Fiery Wrath is an AOE attack. 90 base power, hits both targets, has a 20% chance to flinch, and remember, it's boosted by the Dark Aura from Yveltal. So I think there's a lot of cool synergy there, and yeah, these guys have all the same weaknesses, Fairy, Electric, Rock, Ice. Those things can be mitigated for the most part, I think, and I really do think that like this is going to be a fun core that a lot of people are going to mess with, that's going to be very appealing to, you know, a wide variety of players. Alright, so the last Pokemon in the A tier is a golden oldie, I would say. A golden oldie. I think it's going to be Mewtwo. And a lot of people might say that this is probably not right. A lot of people are like, Mewtwo, I'm not feeling it. Mewtwo's not that great against a lot of these because it underspeeds the ones that, you know, check it the most. It underspeeds the Ghost Horse. It underspeeds, like, what is it? It underspeeds Zacian. It has a not great matchup versus, like, a couple of the other ones. But let me explain why I think Mewtwo's going to be really good. So let's look at Mewtwo. So Mewtwo, popping that guy right off. So it gets Pressure or a Nerve too. Like I said, very good abilities. Most people are probably going to go Unnerve here. Mewtwo can hold a lot of different items. We'll get into that in a minute. it gets Size Strike, which is actually like really, really good 100 base power and targets a defensive stat. So it can already right off the bat be a mixed sweeper. But then what Mewtwo really does is Mewtwo is very splashable, right? I used a Life Orb Mewtwo in the Battle of Legends just to like mess with when I was practicing for that format. I put like Fire Blast on it. It gets access to like Expanding Force if you don't want to run the Size Strike. And this thing in Size Spam is going to be like absolutely nuts. But then you also could get like Solar Beam and things like that to tech on and like a maximum. Like I think one thing Mewtwo has going for it is that it makes for an amazing like Dynamax Mon. Like this thing's just a nuts moveset. Like Blizzards, Ice Beams, you get special attacks, physical attacks, whatever you really want. Focus Blasts, Hurricane. That's what it got. Yeah, it got Hurricane. That's what I thought. Being able to Airstream with Mewtwo is like super, super crazy. When I saw that Mewtwo got Hurricane, I was like, this Pokemon's like so good. And if you're playing like a good Protect the Uber comp, Mewtwo has the potential to go for the AoE with the Expanding Force, but it has the correct other coverage moves to still like one-shot pretty much everything else. Yes, it is a little bit on the slower side, being 130, which is hilarious to actually talk about. Like, it gets outsped by Dragapult, gets outsped by Calyrex, by Regieleki, and things like that. But I do think Mewtwo can, like, if I have Mewtwo and you want to lead with like something that is not those like 3 Pokemon, I can actually one-shot your whole board every single turn, no matter what you do. And I think like just having that there means that Mewtwo is a Pokemon that has to be respected. Like Lele Mewtwo is going to be really, really popular. Again, I talked about the Lele's going for like the Magic Room or something like that in previous formats to turn off items from Xerneas. That's another really cool way to play. And remember, the Lele sets the terrain for the Mewtwo to able to go for like the Expanding Force, and like the Magic Room would turn off like sashes. So that first turn, you're just gonna pop them in the mouth with the absolutely massive Expanding Force. So yeah, that's the first 10, the top 10 best ones in the game. How long have I been recording this? Like I said, it's still like the 3 o'clock hour. You know what? I think I'm gonna have to cop out, guys. I think I'm just gonna show you guys the rest of my list. And I apologize, but like I'm not feeling too good because like it's super early. I didn't get any sleep, and I think I'm just gonna show you guys the rest of the list because like we'd probably be here for another like 2 or 3 hours. Maybe I'll go over this a little bit more in stream. Definitely think about checking out the stream, twitch.tv/THATSAplusONE, and I'll go for a brief overview on why I think each Pokemon is good. I think Groudon's the next one. Groudon, similar to Kyogre, activates Weather, and I think the fact that it still gets Precipice Blades and can be built really bulky, I still think Groudon's gonna be really good. Has a great matchup versus Dusk Mane, and it can be built. Because it's not using the red orb, it can be built really, really specialty bulky and still hold like vests. So it's good versus Zacian. It's good versus both of those horses. The Necrozma, like against the top 5, Groudon's a great anti-meta pick. The only bad thing about Groudon is it's not a fire type, so it can get Will-O-Wisp by like a lot of things. So you got to watch out for that and protect your Groudon, but still has that big stab Precipice Blades. Still a really great option. Great at checking things like Incineroar, decent matchup versus Feenies. We might even see some weakness policy Groudon at some point. And up next, I would say is Lugia. Lugia is similar to Dusk Mane. It gets that big... it's similar to Lunala, I would say, in that it gets... How would I say it? It gets the multi-scale, and that's Dragonite's ability, obviously. But it makes it so, like, Lugia is able to wall out a lot of things, and then it has that big Aero Blast. I'll actually bring up Lugia, because, like, Lugia is pretty important to look at. Lugia is, I think, going to be really good because it's going to be a good Maxmon. So obviously we put the multi-scale here, and he gets Aero Blast, which is a really, really good attack. High crit ratio move, 100 base power, 95% accuracy. I think it's amazing. It gets access to psychic attacks, ice attacks, earth powers. This thing has really, really good offensive coverage, but I think it's just going to make for a really, really good like weakness policy Maxmon. Like, it has decent speed too. Like 110 base speed is actually quite significant. Being able to outspeed base 100s is pretty important. Its special attack's a little bit subpar, but if you policy proc it, it's completely fine. And I think the fact that like it gets multi-scale plus policy, like this is probably gonna be the best way to run Lugia in this format, in my opinion. And I think it's gonna be a lot higher than people give it credit for because we're able just to like lead up against the Ghost Horse. They proc our policy with the Astral Barrage. They don't do that much damage at all. We then one-shot them with like a max Airstream, get a speed boost. We're sitting pretty at +2. Our teammate can do whatever it wants, and then we just kind of win the game. So that's how I think Lugia is going to be played. And Lugia is great versus Kyogres. Lugia, because of the multi-scale, it makes it so the other Ubers are just fodder for proccing its policy. And they kind of have to, right? If they don't, like, we will outscale them. So that's why Lugia is good. The next Pokemon on this list, I think, is going to be Zamazenta. And I haven't really used a ton of this Pokemon, but I do think, similar to Zacian, it has really good coverage. And like I talked about Zamazenta, its biggest weakness was that Zacian's biggest weakness was just, it was a little bit one-dimensional. This guy gets Dauntless Shield to boost its defense upon switching in, and it's just a much bulkier Zacian. I would say this thing plays similar to like a mix of like a Dusk Mane Necrozma and a Solgaleo. And I think it's just really good. I think this is a great EV spread, and I think eventually this Pokemon might be able to creep into like the A tier and replace like the Mewtwo slot. But we'll see. And one Intimidate does turn this guy off quite a bit. Does he get Body Press? Damn, that'd be dope. I wish I got Body Press. But yeah, it has good typing. Fighting Steel is pretty unique. And so, again, this guy can't Dynamax, but I still think he's a solid option for a lot of teams. Very, very bulky. Gonna be... And again, he also can't hold an item. I was gonna say he'd make a great weakness policy user, but he can't hold an item. So that's one of the reasons why he's not as high as I really think he could be. The next Pokemon on this list is going to be Reshiram, and I think Reshiram, if you actually watch the Battle of Legends like content that was put out by a lot of players use Reshiram, and Reshiram is a Pokemon that historically has been garbage in these restricted formats, but that's only when like you factor in Reshiram can't like 1v2. Like if their board is like Kyogre and Rayquaza or Kyogre Xerneas, like Reshiram's going to have a hard time, but if you only have one Uber, it's really hard to KO a Reshiram. Reshiram gets really good coverage moves. And, you know, let's look at the top 5 right there. Reshiram versus Kyogre, they do deal neutral damage against you. You can totally be bulky enough, and then you can reply back with super effective attacks. You can go for those overgrowths. You can set the sun in your max mode, or you can go for like max quakes. Tons of things you can do there. Against the Ghost Horse, these Ghost Calyrex, they don't have any super effective attacks against you. They're pretty weak. Against the Dusk Mane, they have like nothing. That's a good matchup for you. That's one of the reasons why I use Reshiram is that matchup. Against the Ice Horse, they go for Max Quake, but like there's things you can do around that too. And then the Zacian, like Zacian can't do anything against you. It's a super hard counter. Similar things for like Xerneas, similar things for like Lunala, Ho-Oh. Like you see, Reshiram is a one-on-one. Reshiram's like a 1v1 me bro type mon, and I definitely think that's a reason why it's gonna be pretty good. And up next is going to be the Dawn Wings. I may be putting this Pokemon a little bit high, but this is the Pokemon I actually chose to use for the Battle of Legends. I used a Dawn Wings Necrozma right here with Prism Armor, same ability as the Dusk Mane Necrozma, and I used that Power Herb set that I was talking about. I used Power Herb, and the reason I decided to go with this instead of the Lunala is because you know, Meteor Beam can be turned into Max Rockfall, and I was playing like Sand team, so I think this guy's gonna go great on Sand because he makes a great partner for like T-Tar and Excadrill, because he's not weak to the same things they are, and he helps resist those things. Psychic Ghost means I had like Meteor Beam, I had Moongeist Beam, I had Expanding Force, and I had Trick Room. And so I think that's like a really, really cool moveset on this guy. Again, he's not that fast. He has a 157 base special attack, great bulk, and I just think it's a really, really cool set, and I wanted to at least include him in the B tier because I think his Pokemon's like really, really cool looking, and he gets a bunch of really, really awesome offensive options while still having speed control from Trick Room. So up next is going to be the start of the C tier Pokemon that I saw a little bit in the Battle of Legends, but I didn't really use that much, and that's the Eternatus, and I don't think you can use the super busted one. So like Eternatus. Yeah, I don't think you can't use the Eternamax one. But Eternatus gets pressure, great mon for pressure there. I think this thing gets recovery moves, doesn't it? I think people play this thing. Did they play it with like Stockpile? Yeah, no, they didn't play it with Stockpile. They played it with some sort of like boosting. Well, first of all, I'll get Dynamax Cannon. That's the thing that's good about it. It deals double damage to their Dynamax, so it's similar to Zacian's attack. And then, did they play it with, like, Calm Mind? They played it like a wall. That's how I saw, like, 90% of the people play it. Just recover. Yeah. So they played it with, like, Recover. I think they played it with, like, Calm Mind. Not Calm Mind. What move did they use to boost its defenses? I'm curious. Because, like, I just remember that it was Cosmic Power. Yeah. So basically like Stockpile. But that's like the set that most people played. And then they had like Sludge Bomb or something. That was the set that most people played when I saw this thing get used. And it would just be like, it was actually a Black Sludge on most set, which was really, really cool. This thing gets pretty good stats. 130 base speed's still really, really nice. 140 base speed's massive. And so you're able to like max out these two defenses and just kind of rely on that 140 base HP. You probably only need like 100 something points. Maybe like, you know, like a 124 or something like that. Yeah, like a 124 there, and then you can go 252 in this spot easy, and like a 132. Maybe you go like, yeah, I'll go 132. You don't need to put any points in this speed stat. You just kind of ignore it and go like this, and you're in a really good spot. They're not gonna be able to break you with the big special attacking Ubers, and you're able just to get like one Cosmic Power, and you just go to town. You don't actually really even need to put any points in special attack. Like, you kind of just get carried by the fact that this is so high. And that's how people like to play this Pokemon. And again, I haven't had that much experience with it, but I do think it's actually like pretty decent. So up next, the Pokemon that I actually like to use a lot in previous formats, and that's gonna be Solgaleo. Solgaleo might actually be a little bit worse, because like one thing about Solgaleo, right? Solgaleo's right here. Another Pokemon that we already have that's a Psychic Steel type that's really good in this format is gonna be Metagross. And so if we compare them, like Solgaleo, yeah, is 137, Metagross has 135. 137 HP versus Metagross is 80. That's a lot. Metagross has 30 more base defense. Solgaleo has more special attack, which doesn't really matter. Solgaleo has less special D, which, you know, is unfortunate for a thing that's an Uber. And it has more speed, but like it's not, like 98 would be so much better because you'd be able to guarantee outspeed Urshifu. The fact this thing doesn't outspeed guarantee Urshifu, it speed ties Urshifu and takes super effective damage, is not great. The best thing it has going for it is similar to Metagross. It has other Pokemon, it has Clear Body basically. Other Pokemon can't lower its stats. So it gets like Sun Seal Strike. It gets like, some people historically would use, like, the way I like to play this Pokemon was this. So this used to be the set that I used to use when I would play Solgaleo. And you can go Trick Room or Protect here, but it does get the Trick Room. And so that's the set that I liked. And so if you look at like the rest of the Pokemon on this list, like the Zygarde makes it so you're pretty much incapacitating their big AoE mon for the turn. You know, we can't use any damage reduction berries for the Calyrex. I think I used a policy on this thing at one point for a while. But also another thing that's actually really good on this guy was actually Safety Goggles. So like Safety Goggles were really good here, being able to get through redirection to still hit those Xerneases, getting through like Rage Powders, for example, which is like really nice. You know, this is good versus the Ice Horse. It's decent versus the Dusk Mane. It's probably decent versus Zacian. But like this thing does get like it gets tossed around a bit. Like he doesn't have any solid recovery options on this set. Does he get Morning Sun? Yeah, just put Morning Sun on there. But no, like Zygarde's nice. But the reason Superpower was here, there were also situations where we would run the Life Orb one. And if you rocked it out like that, you'd be able to like one-shot Incineroars. And this was a set that could deal with like Incineroar and other things. And it was a cool mon, but I really think that like the way Metagross is played now, like Metagross just has a lot more going for it with like policies. And you're better off just not using a Solgaleo and just using like a weakness policy Metagross. Like if you're gonna play like a Solgaleo, I think most of the time you're probably just better using a Metagross. But I still have to put it this high because like I talked about, it has a decent match versus the top 5, and it can't be intimidated. And it's hard to put a price on saying like I'm gonna do something, and you can't do anything about it. Like if teams are relying on Intimidators to actually function and they just can't intimidate this guy, it sucks to be them, right? All right, the next Pokemon is gonna be this thing, the Zygarde, Super Zygarde. And the thing about Zygarde is like there's gonna be a ton of fairies, right? Tons of ice attacks. So it's really hard to use Zygarde. He does get 2 abilities. There are 2 different Zygardes, but I wanted to miss what's the Power of Construct one. The other one gets Aura Break, which basically says if it's active Dark and Fairy auras, they're pretty much not great. But yeah, so Power Construct says if Zygarde changes at half HP to the Super Mega Uber Zygarde, so its stats go from that to like it just gets a ton more like bulk and stuff like that. I think that's how that works. I think it's how it works. This Pokemon's weird. It's a freaking Transformer guy. The cool thing this thing has going for it is it gets Land's Wrath, so it hits both targets, and I think it hits them if they're flying as well. Land's Wrath is like a really cool move, and people kind of like to play this guy with like Feeny, and they would go like this guy with Feeny. They used to use like Swagger with Feeny, actually. You can't do that anymore, but they get like 1 Dragon Dance off, and then this guy just like melts you with like AoE. It also gets like Extreme Speed if you want to use it, doesn't it? I thought I got Extreme Speed. I could have swore that Zygarde got Extreme Speed. Well, it's good that they took that off, because it's weird that the thing had it in the first place, because it's not even that fast. Anyways, I thought I got Extreme Speed. But let's see what else we get. Core Enforcer, not that great. There's one other move that it gets. I think that like people, it's a great Glare user, gets Haze. I think there's one other move. Scorching Sands is pretty nice on this guy. 1,000 Arrows, that's the move I'm thinking of. Yeah, that's the move that I'm thinking of. Land's Wrath is garbage. 1,000 Arrows is a good one. Grounds adjacent foes, and first hit is neutral on flying. So that's the move that people liked with this guy. So they played him similar to like, this guy was a great check to like Groudon teams back in the day. And historically, like I think like Gary Kwan's used this Pokemon a bit. I've never been a huge fan of this guy. But like people seem to like this Pokemon, and I think a lot of people are excited to use it, but I just really have overlooked it. And every time I see people use this Pokemon, I think like that Pokemon's free. But I do know it's going to be very popular, and I feel if there was one format that could make this thing work with like Dynamaxing and things like that, it's probably this format. So I think this format's definitely going to be something that like complements this Pokemon's play style. So that's why I'm still putting it in the C tier. And we're going to start to see like a shift after like the next Pokemon, or like the last few Pokemon aren't really that great. So the last really good one I would say is going to be Kyurem White. And I think Kyurem White's great, but it's reliant a little bit on choice items. You know, historically, Kyurem White is the Dragon Ice Turbo Blaze user that goes breaking through abilities. And people usually, back in the day, would choice Scarf this thing. So if they choice Scarf it, they can take this speed stat, which is 95, which isn't that great. And you go like this. And the cool thing about Kyurem White is you just choice Scarf Blizzard, stab Blizzard, like everything. And that's kind of how people, you know, tended to play this thing. Which is unfortunate, because I think it's a really cool Pokemon. But, like, it sucks that they would go with, like, the Choice Scarf sets. And Choice Scarf sets, historically, like, aren't as popular in, like, max formats. Just because, like, cool, you have your Uber, but, like, would you rather have a Kyurem White using Blizzard? Or, like, a Calyrex Ice form, yeah, going for a Trick Room and then just Dynamax and melting their whole team? You don't even have to Dynamax, just Astral Barrage. Like, Blizzard can miss, Astral Barrage can't. But other cool things this guy gets is you would have, like, you beat other dragons if you're Scarfed. You beat pretty much everything else. This was great against Landos. There was one other move that it got. It got Fire Attack. It got Fusion Flare. So, like, it's really good because this Scarf set, like, outspeeds Zacian and can KO it. It can do really good damage to the Ice Horse. This probably has a great match for this Ice Horse. It has a decent enough matchup, only because of, like, Fusion Flare and Earth Power if you're already ahead against the Necrozma. And it was good against Ogre. That's one of the reasons why it was pretty decent, I would say. And I think it's still usable. It's definitely a cool pick. Get it? It's cool. But I don't think it's definitely just not as great in a max format if you're going to be playing it this way. I do think weakness policy sets, like looking at it right now, like a weakness policy set, because it has so many weaknesses, like Steel, you know, Fairy, obviously, Fighting. You might be able to get a policy proc, like a Vacuum Wave, like a Wide Guard Hitmontop next to this guy, like policy procking. That might actually be like really good. It also has like decent physical attack, 120, and it does still get access to like dual wing beat and things like that. So I will say this Pokemon has like potential, but they're gonna have to like really readapt and relook at the meta to see if like Kyurem White is gonna be a Pokemon that's usable. And up next, similar to Kyurem, we got Zekrom. I think Zekrom's a cool Pokemon as well. Remember when I said I was gonna stop the list? I kind of just like started going faster. Terravolt means they can't you know, break the abilities. Sorry, abilities are ignored, right? This thing gets Bolt Strike and Fusion Flare. So Bolt Strike, 130, but it can miss. 20% chance to pair, super nice. And Fusion Flare. Most people still go with the Bolt Strike. Alright. Fusion Bolt, there it is. Not Fusion Flare. And then it gets like Dragon Claw or Outrage. Does it get Scale Shot? Yeah, that's sick actually. I like Scale Shot. Give that speed boost on this guy. That's actually his biggest problem was that, so that's really nice. Does it get Dragonass? That's nuts too. Like, that's a pretty cool moveset. People usually like to orb this guy. And one thing that actually Zekrom has going for it is that, like, it can, like... So, like, Dragon Ground typing... Sorry, Dragon Electric typing is a really good typing because it's weak to Fairy, Dragon, Ice, and Ground. And that's it. And so, that may sound like a lot of weaknesses, but those are all weaknesses that can definitely tunneled in and helped mitigate it in team preview. Zekrom and Ho-Oh historically were like really good together because let's talk about it. Like Ground, Ho-Oh nullifies as a switch in. You know, Fairy, Ho-Oh resists. Ice, like Ho-Oh takes neutral, and if you are an Ice type, Ho-Oh will beat you. And then the other one, Dragon, like Ho-Oh don't care. Even Zekrom don't care. Zekrom's a dragon that will beat you. The only problem with Zekrom actually, historically looking back, was its speed stat. 90 is a little bit low. Even like outsped like Arcanine's Urshifu still outspeed it. You know, it's a little bit low. So having access to like Scale Shot to boost that speed stat is really good. Multi-hits to break sashes as well. Having access to Dragon Dance this gen, actually really nice. So like I wouldn't be surprised to see people just like go to town. And you probably don't need that much speed. You probably only need enough speed at +1 to be able to outspeed Pult. And that might mean you still have to be timid. Let's see. It looks like you still have to be timid. But that's fine. I mean... Like, that's a good set still. So, I do think Zekrom is going to be usable for sure. Gotta watch out for Will-O-Wisp, but, like, one turn, like, if you go into these Zekrom, even if they intimidate you, you go, like, follow me, Dragon Dance, you're gonna outspeed everything, and then like Bolt Strike. This guy will be a great max option as well. So Zekroms pretty cool. Maybe it might have to go up here. Maybe, we'll see. All right, and then the last tier. There's a couple solid options here, but I think the first one is gonna be Dialga. And I've already talked a little bit in my Discord. If you guys actually want to join a community, check out our Discord. There's a link to it at the top of every single video in the description. We have a pretty active community. We have thousands of people always talking, always battling, trading, learning more about VGC. We talked a little bit about Dialga, and I said Dialga is actually going to be not too hot in my opinion. Telepathy is a cool ability that it gets here. I also like Pressure. Dialgas historically, tend to run a lot more on the bulky side with like those wiki berries, but because Calyrex exists, that's already a big nerf to Dialga. So they're probably, if you ever do see Dialga, it's probably gonna be a policy set. And the biggest thing Dialga actually has going for it, it used to be the only sealed dragon other than, now we have Duraludon, which I would say is probably even better than Dialga, just because there's going to be so much redirection to Duraludon might actually see a lot more play. But like, Dialga gets Trick Room, right? And so Dialga was a Pokemon that you really couldn't one-shot, and Dialga was like the hard check to like Ogre, because Ogre would go for all those big water attacks, and Dialga, look how bulky it is, like it really, really does not care. And you would just put like, you'd be like, Lamau, Kyogre, I don't care about you. And like that would be your set, And then like you'd put like Earth Power to deal with like Stakatakas. It also gets like Aura Sphere if you wanted to go like Aura Sphere over Earth Power. Earth Power I would say would just be a little bit better in certain situations. The only situations which Aura Sphere was actually better is whenever Yveltal would be more popular, because Earth Power would be good against Incin, it'd be good against like Stakataka. But like there's a higher chance of having that Shuka Berry, which we're not going to see anymore. But then like Aura Sphere would be the same type of things. It hit the Incin, it hit the Staka, but it would also hit the Yveltal. So like both those are actually solid options. And you also can hit like normal types and things like that with the Aura Sphere. I think Earth Power's going to be a little bit better. They'd still usually rock the Draco Meteor to fight other dragons. And then the last set, you'd usually put like Protect here. But like if we start looking at the Alga, there's like, it gets Flash Cannon. Yeah, you put like Flash Cannon there. And then if like this is your Pokemon, if like this is what you want to use Dialga for, right? If that's how people are running Dialga still, so if like they're not mixing it up, it's just gonna be super hard to make this Pokemon work. I think at this point you're just better off running like most other Mons. Like you're just better off running. This is like a really, really nerfed Dusk Mane. Like I think just Dusk Mane just brings a ton more to the table. If we compare them, right? Like Dialga has a little bit more HP. Dusk Mane has a ton more attack. Dusk Mane has more defense. Dusk Mane has a ton more special attack. Actually, sorry, incorrect. Dusk Mane has less special attack. They have similar specialty, and then, they have similar base speeds. I would say Dialga would be a little bit faster. Might actually be a little bit better for Dialga, even though it's a Trick Room team. But, like, the thing is, Dusk Mane has the Prism Armor, and that's what sets it apart. It makes it so it really doesn't have the weaknesses like Dialga does. Dialga's weak against ground, which we already talked about. Having a ground weakness in this format, just like Zacian, is going to be not great. It has that fighting weakness, which we already know is not that great. It takes neutral damage from fairies, which we're already going to see a ton of in this format. And it doesn't have any recovery moves, so I just think Dialga's hard to use. Definitely an experienced player alert for Dialga. I know Wolf Glick likes Dialga, so maybe we'll see some people using Dialga. I would say he's probably the player with the best results of that Pokemon. So maybe Wolf will make a team with Dialga, show people it's good, and then that'll get popular, and then Dialga can raise in the tier list. But that's like the only way I see it happening. Up next is the last Pokemon I used at a regional in 2019. That's Palkia. Palkia is similar to Dialga. It doesn't have recovery moves. The meta doesn't really, make way for like Palkia to be good. But what Palkia does is like Water Dragon, similar to that Kingdra, that's good typing. I think Palkia, the set that I used was an Assault Vest set. And you pretty much just go like, you pretty much just do like that. And you just rely on that bulk. 100 base speed, a little bit faster, so 100 is acceptable for sure. But like, I really, really like Palkia. That's a good, like, let's compare it to like Kingdra, right? Let's just compare it to Kingdra. So like, Kingdra's like 95s, 95s, 95s. Palkia is like 150, 120s, 100. It's just way thicker. It gets access to a bunch of really cool moves as well. I think I used D-Pulse on mine because mine wanted to sit on the board for a while. It gets Earth Power. It gets some super cool water attack as well. I don't remember. It gets Power Gem. Yeah, Spatial Rend. That's what I use, not Dragon Pulse somehow. So Spatial Rend, high crit ratio, 95 base power, just like Lugia's Aeroblast. And then the last moveset choice, you go Thunders to be like an anti, what what is it, an anti-Kyurem. It also gets access to Trick Room. I'll say it. Just like Dialga, I think Palkia's... It might be fair to put Palkia higher than Dialga, and I personally do think Palkia might be better, but Dialga does have more results than Palkia. I will say whenever anyone sees you using a Palkia, they're like, dude, Palkia, nice. Like, everyone respects the Palkia. I think it's a super cool Pokemon, but I do think that, like, the fact that it doesn't really have any sustain, it makes it just a little bit weak. And maybe, who knows, it might actually be really good now that, like, there's only one Uber per team. But, like, when I would play with Palkia, it'd feel like Palkia had to, like, freaking win the 7-Nation Army battle all by itself. Like, it had so much work to do every time I had to use it. And maybe if they only have one Uber, it's like, if it's just, I have Palkia and you have Calyrex, I can probably wall you out. And then get a good matchup or something like that and be okay. And then if I lose the Palkia, well, Palkia walled out your Uber, so that's 1 for 1, and that's a win in most situations. You gotta think of VGC like chess. If you trade queens, and you're someone who, like, is already in a favorable position, you're just gonna win. So, speaking about Pokemon that are not great, I think Kyurem Black is gonna be up here. And, you know, Kyurem Black actually used to be legal in singles OU. Pretty decent Pokemon, I would say. So, it's a physical variant of the Kyurem. Still gets that Terravolt, so it still says no abilities. You can still hit the, the Wonder Guard Shedinjas, which we'll see play in this format, I promise. Because a lot of these Pokemon, other than the, like, Kyogres, you know, like the Ice Horse, Zacian, Xerneas, a lot of those Pokemon aren't going to carry super effective moves. They could really only carry their big stab AoE moves, and those just don't work on Shedinjas. So having abilities that can still hit those things is actually really nice. This guy still gets Dragon Dance, I think, as well. But historically, this guy is worse than the, than the Kyurem White version, because it gets, what is that move that it gets? It gets a really cool ice attack. I think they gave it, like, another cool ice attack now. I think they gave it, like, Ice Punch finally. Well, they gave it Icicle Spear. But what was that ice move they got? It was called, like, freaking Freeze Bolt or whatever. Freeze Shock. So it's a 140 base power move. I think this guy's coolest to use with a Power Herb, just because I think that's, again, super cool. Moves that you can use Power Herbs with. It's a 140 move, can miss. It's a charge move. Has a 30% chance to para. It's a really cool move, and it just sucks as, like, super special awesome attack isn't that great. If we're going to compare it to one Pokemon, like, let's look at this attack stat. Like, 170, same as Zacian, I believe. But, like, let's compare it to this guy. Would you rather have 100 HP or 125? 125 is a little bit better. Would you rather have 165 attack or 170? 170 a little bit better. And that's where it ends, right? You have 150 defense versus 100. That's 50 more. That's quite a bit. Special attack stats don't matter. 90 versus 130. And then, like, 50 is actually better. And it has speed control with Trick Room. And so at that point, if you're already dedicated to running that, like, ice type, you're just better off running the Calyrex, which is why Kyurem's down here. But it is a cool Pokemon whenever you see it. Again, similar to the Reshiram, you might actually, the Reshiram variant, sorry, you might see, like, weakness policy sets pop off, because it does have those weaknesses to, like, Steel, and, you know, able to, like, Bullet Punch self-proc, or, like, Vacuum Wave self-proc, and it might be pretty good. But, for now, it's sitting down here. Up next is going to be a Pokemon. There's 2 forms of it. That's not the rest of the list, but, like, Giratina, and I'm actually going to look at this one, because I think this one is a little bit better personally, but more results have been made with the origin form. There's actually, I'm going to talk about both of them. So let's go Giratina. So we have Giratina here. Both Giratina forms. Bam. So we have, this Giratina gets Pressure and Telepathy. Telepathy, another pretty good ability. I think Pressure's going to be a little bit better on this guy. And this guy, I think, only gets 1. Right, it's a Levitate. So Levitate's actually an amazing ability in double. So that's one of the big things this guy has going for it. But it makes him have to hold this item to be in this form. So in this form, this Giratina, its Ghost and Dragon type attacks have 1.2 power. And you can see their stats are different. So like this Giratina, the base form is going to be a little bit bulkier. 150 base HP, 100, 120, 100, 120, 90 versus 50. And then they flip it. So 120, 100, 120, 100, 90. So it's a little bit more aggressive if you want to use this one. This guy was the first Pokemon to get, it was, before Dragon Ball got Phantom Force, this thing had Shadow Force, which is a little bit better. It's a 120 base version of Phantom Force, and it's super, super strong. So like people would go like physical Giratina, and I think I've personally actually used this Pokemon a lot. I actually took this thing to a regional, not a regional, I took this thing to a PC, taking it to a few PCs, because this is one of my favorite Pokemon. Like I said, I definitely like this one a little bit more. But more importantly, people usually like to play this thing with like Shadow Force. It used to get Tailwind, and I don't think it gets Trick Room either. Like if it got those moves, it would definitely be usable. I think it still gets ally switch though, doesn't it? It doesn't even get ally switch. So this thing sucks. But let's talk about other moves it gets. People usually like to put like Dragon Claw on it just to capitalize on the fact that you're holding a Grisius Orb. Sometimes they would pack the Earthquake. Sometimes they would pack the Outrage, the Iron Head. You would see those every once in a while. Shadow Sneak's pretty decent on this guy. And Will-O-Wisp still is pretty nice. So like you would see this Pokemon pop up every once in a while. It had Icy Wind. I think like Giratina is okay, but it's definitely more of a supporty Uber. And in formats like right now where we can only really have one, it's really hard to use supporty Ubers. But most people would kind of play this guy just as like a bruiser, I would say. And they would play it just like that, you know. But I guess one good thing going for it is like 90 is okay as far as the support mon goes. Like 90 doesn't really work when you're trying to do it on like a sweeper like Zekrom. But if your support Pokemon is 90 base speed, that's okay. So like this guy's not terrible, but like Urshifu being around, that Ghost Calyrex gonna be around, it's gonna be super hard to use Giratina. I'll at least mention my favorite Giratina set here. And so it uses pressure. And so the way I like to play this Pokemon is to wait out all of their PP. It's pretty much PP stalls them. So you go Protect. You're gonna go with the Phantom Force. And then I'm trying to remember, I have a lot of videos featuring this team actually. I'm trying to remember like what else I used. The really cool move I used on this thing was Double Team. And they took it out for this guy. So like you can't use Double Team on him anymore. So like I would go for like Evasion procs and I would just try to chill with Giratina. So it sucks you can't do that anymore. But like that's how I like to play this thing. I had Will-O-Wisp, yeah. So I would pretty much just put up like Will-O-Wisps and then I had Double Team here. But you can't use Double Team anymore. So like the fact that I can't use Double Team, I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board. But the good thing about this Giratina is you can actually hold an item. So like Leftovers got a ton of value, weaving in Protects, Phantom Forces, you know, waiting them out through Will-O-Wisps, and you would just PP them out. I guess you could put like Pain Split in that spot or something like that. But I think this Pokemon's really cool because it's very bulky. You don't need to put a ton of points in the HP stat since it's already so high. You can put a ton of points in that Special D. You can almost do something like that and almost get away with it just because the HP stat is so massive. I think it's really cool. It just doesn't really do that much damage, and it's more of like a meme pick than anything else. And then the last one. You know, there's a lot of Pokemon that I guess we'll say we didn't list. Like, we're not going to list the Comphase or the Cosmo Gems or, like, the base form Necrozma. Because at that point, you're better off just, like, if you're going to use Necrozma, use one of these two. Necrozma's okay in, like, singles. But I guarantee you any of the people that are using, like, Necrozma and, like, OU would rather use, like, Dusk Mane or, you know, would rather use, like, the Dawn Wings. But the last one that we're going to be talking about here is going to be the big boy Rayquaza. And I think Rayquaza, you know, historically winner of the World Championships in 2016. It's a Pokemon that, like, just really is not happy losing its Mega Evolution. Like, I didn't even talk about the fact that, like, we lost Red Orb on Groudon and the Blue Orb on Kyogre, or losing Mega Evolutions for some things. This thing not having Mega Evolution and losing access to, you know, Mega Rayquaza was so big. It still has Dragon's Ascent, which is a 120 base move. Flying Stab that lowers your defense and special defense by 1, but we're going to look at its stats and you're going to immediately see why. Like, it's not great. Slow. It's 150. It's super offensive in both, so you can go physical or special. We've seen a lot of, like, vested rays before as, like, big special mons, but that's only when using Mega Rayquaza. And Mega Rayquaza used to have its own personal weather that would make it so all flying types took reduced damage from special attacks, which is really good. Now we're relying on Airlock, which pretty much just turns off weather. But, like, it's not that great. Like, historically, movesets for this guy were, like, if you weren't using the vest, right? If you were using, like, the Sash set, this is another one that can actually go Sash. But at that point, if you're going to, like, a Sash Dragon, just run a Dragapult or something. They go, like, Protect sometimes. So they go Protect. They'd go, like, Dragon Dance. And then they'd go, like, E-Speed. And, like, that would be their set. And, like, that's a pretty not great set, I think. And so it's like the least uber on this list. I think Rayquaza is like awesome. Like, people know it obviously it's like a really cool shiny. But I do think that, like, without Mega Ray, this thing falls a little bit short. And it was a really offensive, like, uber. But that's when, like, pairing it with Kyogre. So the fact that, like, it's playing single ubers, like, I would much rather, like, if I'm going up against, like, it might be okay against Ogre because we outspeed, but, like, going up against that Calyrex, it's bad. Against Duskmane, that was a great big check for it. You can obviously see the moveset we have here. We auto-lose against that Calyrex. Zacian outspeeds and dumpsters us. Xerneas, like, just sets up in our face. We can't do anything about it. Lunala's great against it. Ho-Oh burns us. Like, you're starting to see, like, situations where, like, Rayquaza is not that great. And you know what? I got through this video. I did it. I recorded this whole thing at like 3 in the morning, and you know what? I'm very tired. So I just want to say thank you guys. If you guys did get this far, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little in-depth dive. I'm just really surprised how much, like, making the EV spreads, talking about the items, talking about movesets for all these Pokemon. Like, that took a lot out of me. I'm very surprised that I did it. So hopefully you guys liked it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I would really appreciate it. You know, we just hit 21K, I think. We're either at 20K or 21K right now. And I just want to say thank you guys for supporting me so far. So hopefully you guys liked the video. Hopefully you guys are excited to see a bunch of the teams I'm going to be making over the course of the next couple weeks. Guys, let me know the answer to the question of the day. Let me know what Pokemon you want to see. And I will see you guys next time. Peace out.